Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, reason, individuality which takes itself to be real in and for itself, the spiritual animal kingdom, and deceit, or the matter in hand, itself. Continued. This vanishing of the vanishing lies in the notion of the intrinsically real individuality itself. For that in which the work vanishes, or what vanishes in the work, and what was supposed to give experience, as it was called, its supremacy over individuality's own notion of itself, is the objective reality. Objective reality, however, is a moment which itself no longer possesses any truth on its own account in this consciousness. That truth consists solely in the unity of this consciousness with the action, and the true work is only that unity of doing and being, of willing and achieving. Consciousness then, because of the fundamental certainty of its actions, holds the reality opposed to that certainty to be for it alone, for self-consciousness which has returned into itself, and for which all antithesis has vanished. Antithesis can no longer take this form of being for itself in antithesis to reality. On the contrary, then, the antithesis and the negativity manifested in work affect not merely the content of the work or the content of consciousness as well, but affect the reality as such, and hence affect the antithesis present in that reality, and present only in virtue of it, and the vanishing of the work. In this way, then, consciousness is reflected out of its perishable work into itself, and preserves its notion and its certainty as what objectively exists and endures in face of the experience of the contingency of action. It experiences in point of fact its notion, in which reality is only a moment, that is, something for consciousness, not something which exists in its own right. It experiences it as a vanishing moment, and reality therefore has for consciousness only the value of being as such, whose universality is one with action. This unity is the true work. It is the very heart of the matter, which completely holds its own and is experienced as that which endures, independently of what is merely the contingent result of an individual action. The result of contingent circumstances, means, and reality. The heart of the matter is only opposed to these moments insofar as they are supposed to be isolated, but as an interfusion of the reality and the individuality, it is essentially their unity, is equally an action, and qua action, pure action in general. Hence, just as much an action of this particular individual, and this action is still his in antithesis to reality, is a purpose, equally it is the transition from this determinateness into the opposite. And lastly, it is a reality which is explicitly present for consciousness. The heart of the matter thus expresses the spiritual essentiality, in which all these moments have lost all validity of their own, and are valid therefore only as universal, and in which the certainty consciousness has of itself is an objective entity, an objective fact for it, an object born of self-consciousness as its own, without ceasing to be a free object in the proper sense. The thing of sense certainty and perception now acquires its significance through self-consciousness, and through it alone. On this rests the distinction between a thing and a cause, or a matter in hand. A movement corresponding to that from sense certainty to perception will run its course here. In the matter in hand, then, in which the interfusion of individuality and objectivity has itself become objective, self-consciousness has come into possession of its true notion, or has attained to a consciousness of its substance. At the same time, this consciousness, as it exists here, is one that has just now come into being, and hence is an immediate consciousness of its substance, and this is the specific way in which spiritual being is present here. It has not yet developed into a truly real substance. The matter in hand has, in this immediate consciousness of its substance, the form of simple essence which, as a universal, contains within itself all its various moments and belongs to them, but again is also indifferent to them as specific moments, and is free and independent, and as this free, simple, abstract matter in hand has the value of essential being, the various moments of the original determinateness or of the matter in hand of this particular individual, the moments of his end, of the means, of the action itself, and of the reality, all these are, on the one hand, single particular moments for this consciousness which, in comparison with the matter in hand, it can abandon and surrender. On the other hand, however, they all have this matter in hand as their essence, but only in such a way that it, being their abstract universal, can be found in each of these various moments and can be a predicate of them. The matter in hand is not yet a subject, but those moments count as subject because they fall on the side of individuality in general, whereas the matter in hand is at first only the simple universal. It is the genus, which is found in all these moments as species of itself, and is equally free and independent of them. Consciousness is called honest when it has on the one hand attained to the idealism which the matter in hand expresses, and on the other hand possesses the truth in it qua this formal universality, a consciousness which is concerned solely with the matter in hand, and therefore busies itself solely with the various moments or species of it, and when it does not attain the matter in hand in one of these moments or in one meaning, it for that very reason gets hold of it in another. Consequently, it does in fact always obtain the satisfaction which it should enjoy in virtue of its notion. Whichever way things turn out, it has accomplished and attained the matter in hand, for this being the universal genus of those moments is the predicate of them all. If this consciousness does not convert its purpose into a reality, it has at least willed it. That is, it makes the purpose qua purpose, the mere doing which does nothing, the heart of the matter, and can therefore explain and console itself with the fact that all the same something was taken in hand and done, since the universal itself contains, subsumed under it, the negative moment or the vanishing, the fact that the work annihilates itself. This too is its doing. It has incited the others to do this, and in the vanishing of its reality still finds satisfaction, just like naughty boys who enjoy themselves when they get their ears boxed because they are the cause of its being done. Or again, suppose it has not even attempted to carry out the matter in hand and has done absolutely nothing, then it has not been able to. The matter in hand is for it just the unity of its resolve and the reality. It asserts that the reality would be nothing else but what it was possible for it to do. Finally, suppose something of interest to him has come this way, without any effort on his part, then for him this reality is this matter in hand, just because of the interest he finds in it, even though that reality has not been produced by him. If it is a piece of good fortune that has befallen him personally, then he is sure that it is his own doing and his own desert. If, on the other hand, it should be an event of historical importance, which does not really concern him, he makes it likewise his own, and an interest for which he has done nothing is, in his own eyes, a party interest which he has favoured or opposed, and even combated or supported. The integrity of this consciousness, as well as the satisfaction it expresses in all its relationships, obviously consists in the fact that it does not bring together its thoughts about the matter in hand. For it, the matter in hand is as much its own affair as not a work at all, or as a mere action and an empty purpose, or even a reality involving no action at all. It makes one meaning after another the subject of this predicate, and forgets them one after another. Now the matter in hand is being merely willed, or even in being incapable of realization, has the meaning of an empty purpose and of a unity of willing and achievement only in thought. The constellation of the failure for the failure of the purpose, which at least was willed or at least simply done, as well as the satisfaction of having given others something to do, makes simple doing, or thoroughly bad work, the essence of the whole affair. For that work is to be called bad, which is no work at all. Finally, in the lucky event of finding the reality already in being, this being becomes, without any effort, the matter in hand itself. The truth about this integrity, however, is that it is not as honest as it seems, for it cannot be so unthinking as to let these various moments actually fall apart in that way. It must be directly aware of their antithesis because they are absolutely interrelated. The pure action is essentially the action of this particular individual, and this action is equally essentially a reality or a matter in hand. Conversely, the reality is essentially only as his doing and as action in general as well, and his action is at the same time only as action in general, and so too as reality in general. While then it seems to him that his concern is only with the matter in hand as an abstract reality, it is also a fact that he is concerned with it as his own doing. But just because he is concerned merely with being active and busy, he is not really in earnest about it. He has only to do with some objective matter and with one that is his own. Since finally he seems to will only his own affair, or his own action, it is again a matter of dealing with an affair in general or with a reality that endures in its own right. Just as the matter in hand itself and its moments appear here as content, they are equally necessary too as forms in consciousness. They appear as consciousness only to vanish, each making room for the other. They must therefore be present in the character of superseded forms, but as such they are aspects of consciousness itself. The matter in hand is present as the in itself, or the reflection into itself of consciousness. The supplanting of the moments by one another finds expression there. However, in their being established in consciousness, not as they are in themselves, but only as existing for another consciousness, one of the moments of the content is exposed by it to the light of day and made manifest to others. But consciousness is at the same time reflected back from it into itself, and the opposite is equally present within consciousness, which retains in it for itself as its own. At the same time, what occurs is not that one or other of the moments is merely exposed and another merely retained. On the contrary, consciousness operates alternately with them, for it must make one as well as another essential for itself and for the others. The whole is the spontaneous interfusion of individuality and the universal, but because this whole is present for consciousness only as the simple essence, and thus as the abstraction of the matter in hand, its separate moments fall apart outside of that matter in hand, and of one another. As a whole, it is only exhaustively exhibited by alternately exposing its moments and retaining them for itself. Since in this alternation, consciousness keeps in its reflection one moment for itself and as essential, while another is only externally present in it, or is for others, there thus enters a play of individualities with one another, which each and all find themselves both deceiving and deceived. An individuality sets about carrying out something. By so doing, it seems to have made something its own affair, its acts, and in acting becomes involved with others and seems to itself to be having to do with reality. The others, therefore, takes its actions for a sign of its interest in the matter in hand, as such, and its purpose to be the carrying out of the matter per se, regardless whether this is done by the first individuality or by them. Accordingly, when they point out that this matter has already been accomplished by them, or if it has not, offer and furnish their assistance, then this consciousness has really left the position they believe it to occupy. It is its own action and its own effort that constitute its interest in the matter in hand, and when the others become aware that this was really the matter in hand, then they feel they have been deceived. But actually, their eagerness to come and help was itself nothing else but a desire to see and exhibit their own action, not the matter in hand itself. That is, they wanted to deceive the others in just the same way that they complain of having been deceived. Since it now turns out that its own action and effort, the play of its own powers, is the heart of the matter, it seems that consciousness is occupied with its own interest and with that of others, and is anxious only about action as its own action, and not about action as the action of others, and hence seems to allow the others to do as they like about the matter they have in hand. But again they are mistaken. That consciousness has already left the position they thought it occupied. It is not concerned with the matter in hand as its own particular affair, but simply as a matter in hand as a universal, which is for everyone. It interferes therefore in the action and work of others, and if it can no longer take the work out of their hands, it at least shows an interest in it by passing judgment on it. If it gives it the stamp of its approval and praise, this is meant to imply that in the work it praises not only the work itself, but also its own generosity and moderation in not having damaged the work as such, nor damaged it by its censure. In showing an interest in the work, it is enjoying its own self, and the work which it censures is equally welcome to it, for just this enjoyment of its own action which its censor provides. Those, however, who think or pretend to think that they have been deceived by this interference, wanted really themselves to practice the same kind of deceit. They pretend that their action and efforts are something for themselves, along in which they have only themselves and their essential nature in mind. However, in doing something and thus bringing themselves out into the light of day, they directly contradict by their deed their pretense of wanting to declare of publicity and participation by all and sundry. Actualization is, on the contrary, a display of what is one's own in the element of universality, whereby it becomes and should become the affair of everyone. It is then equally a deception of oneself and of others, if it is pretended that what one is concerned with is the matter in hand alone. A consciousness that opens up a subject matter soon learns that others hurry along like flies to freshly poured out milk and want to busy themselves with it, and they learn about that individual that he too is concerned with the subject matter, not as an object but as his own affair. On the other hand, if what is supposed to be essential is merely the doing of it, the employment of powers and capacities, or the expression of this particular individuality, then equally it is learned by all parties, that they all regard themselves as affected and invited to participate, and instead of a mere doing or separate action peculiar to the individual who opened up the subject matter, something has been opened up that is for others as well, or is a subject matter on its own account. In both cases, the same thing happens, and only has a different significance by contrast with what was assumed and was supposed to be accepted. Consciousness experiences both sides as equally essential moments, and in doing so learns what the nature of the matter in hand really is, namely, that it is neither merely something which stands opposed to action in general and to individual action, nor action which stands opposed to a continuing being, and which would be the free genus of these moments as its species. Rather, is its nature such that its being is the action of the single individual and of all individuals, and whose action is immediately for others, or is a matter in hand and is such only as the action of each and every one. The essence which is the essence of all beings, namely spiritual essence, consciousness, learns that no one of these moments is subject, but rather gets dissolved in the universal matter in hand. The moments of the individuality, which this unthinking consciousness regarded as subject, one after the other, coalesce into simple individuality, which, as this particular individuality, is no less immediately universal. Thus, the matter in hand no longer has the character of a predicate and loses the characteristic of lifeless, abstract universality. It is rather substance permeated by individuality, subject in which there is individuality just as much qua individual or qua this particular individual as qua all individuals, and it is the universal which has being only as this action of all and each, and a reality in the fact that this particular consciousness knows it to be its own individual reality and the reality of all. The pure matter in hand itself is what was defined above as the category, being that is the I, or the I that is being, but in the form of thought which is still distinguished from actual self-consciousness. Here, however, in the moments of actual self-consciousness, insofar as we call them its content, purpose, action, and reality, and also insofar as we call them its form, being for self and being for another, are posited as one with the simple category itself, and the category is thereby at the same time the entire content.